if you've ever heard of the five love languages, then you've heard of Dr. Gary Chapman. He's a well-known marriage counselor. He's a speaker. He's the author of many books, including that title I just mentioned. And his latest book has another five in the title. It's Five Traits of Healthy Families. I know you want to have a healthy family. I want to have a healthy family. And so just get ready to learn. Welcome to Grounded, Dr. Chapman.
Well, thank you, Aaron. It's good to be with you.
Well, families, everybody has one, right? And deep down, we all want our families to thrive. So why can building a healthy family be such a challenge?
Well, I think one reason, Aaron, is that there are many individuals who are now adults and they are parents, but they grew up in very dysfunctional families, and they literally have almost no idea of what a healthy family would look like. That's one of the things that motivated me to write this book. I think another is that all of us realize that we need help when it comes to having a healthy family. So I'm trying to just kind of make it clear, lay it out there. You know, this is what it looks like, and then give practical ideas on how to work on each of these five traits.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I just had coffee this weekend with some friends from high school, and then we were in the 90s when divorce rates were sky high. And we are children of divorce now raising our kids. And we have a little bit of that, like, what are we supposed to be doing here? We didn't see it modeled in the ways that we want to do with our own families. You've been ministering to families for a long time. What are some of the shifts that you've seen through the years?
Well, I think one of the things is that we've grown away from the idea of covenant in a marriage, that we're committed to each other, and therefore we're going to find ways to make this thing work. You know, and I think we've lost that covenant concept, and so consequently, we've gone more to an emotional perspective. And if I'm not happy in this relationship, and you're not making me happy, then I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to find somebody who'll make me happy. And that kind of attitude leads to the brokenness of family life.
You're so right. Not only are people not staying in their marriages, but people aren't even getting married. That value of marriage is something that's really been eroded. I do want to have you walk us through these five traits of healthy families. Of course, in this amount of time we have, we're going to have to give the high view, but I do want to give us a picture of these traits. First, you said families who serve. Why is it important to establish a positive attitude about working for each other and with each other, do you think?
Well, I put this first in the book because I believe it's fundamental. You know, if we don't have an attitude of, I want to enrich your life, whether we're talking about husband, wife, or parent, child, an attitude of service in the home is fundamental. And here's the good news. We choose our attitude. We don't choose our emotions, but we choose our attitude. And if a husband has the attitude, I'm here to enrich your life, honey. You let me know how I can help you be the person you want to be. I'm there to help you. She has the same attitude toward him. They have that attitude toward the children. And as the children get older, they teach the children how to have that attitude. You're here to serve your brother and sister. We're going to serve mom and dad. And then we take that outside, take the family outside the family, and serve in the community, reaching people. You know, this all grows out of the words of Jesus, who said, I did not come to be served. I came to serve and to give my life a ransom for others. And he's our model. So I think this attitude of service in the family is fundamental.
I'm going to write that down because I have two teenage boys, and they don't always want to shovel manure in the barn and pull weeds in the garden and the things that have to be done on our little farm. But you're pointing to helping them understand the why, which is so important. I don't always do that well. The second trait you listed was husbands and wives who relate intimately. I don't think we know what true biblical intimacy is. How would you define biblical intimacy?
Well, I think many in our culture, when you use the word intimacy, they think about the sexual part of marriage. And that certainly is involved, but it's far, far more than that. When I say intimacy, it's talking about intellectual intimacy. In a healthy family, husbands and wives share their ideas about things and their dreams about things, and they don't put each other down and say, well, that won't work or that's wrong, you know. No, we're trying to understand each other's thoughts and feelings. We have intellectual freedom and intimacy to talk. And then there's emotional intimacy. We share our emotions with each other. some positive, some negative, but we're open about our emotions, and we're sensitive and empathetic to each other's emotions. And we're also seeking to try to meet emotional needs in the family, one of which is love, and that's where the 5 love languages helps. And but also social intimacy. That is, we do things together with other people. And that may be going to church. There's a social aspect to that. It may be going to a ball game. But we're sharing life with others, are part of a small group, So we share our social life. And then, yes, we share our spiritual life. And I don't mean we preach to each other. Honey, I read this morning in the Bible, and you need to hear this. I don't mean that. I mean, honey, I read this morning. It was so meaningful to me. I just want to share it with you. So we share our spiritual journey. And, yes, then there is physical intimacy. But, the physical intimacy is impacted by all these other areas of intimacy. And if we don't have those areas, we will not have sexual intimacy. So, but in a healthy family, between the husband and wife, there'll be intimacy. The scriptures say the two become one. Deep, deep, deep intimacy. Doesn't erase our individuality, but we're really deeply intimacy involved with each other.
It's so beautiful. My husband, Jason, and I actually just had a moment like that this weekend. The Lord's doing something in my heart, and I'm a writer. I have to write it. So I texted it to him. So this is what the Lord's doing in my heart. And he responded very sweetly, and it was intimate. We could share with each other what God was doing. So I love that that's a mark of a healthy family. You said parents who guide their children is a mark of a healthy family. What is the process for establishing and enforcing wise rules with our kids? I would love to have a one-on-one here because, as I said, I have teenagers. How do we guide our children well?
Well, I think the model again is God, and God gave us guidelines. God gave us rules to live by. He said, "Don't do this, but do this," knowing, and they all grew out of His love. And if we follow those, then we're going to have the best possible life on earth. And so He also shared the fact that there's going to be consequences if we don't follow those rules. And so I think we use words and actions to teach our children. We explain things to them, but we also tie actions with it. If I can give you an example, a mother goes to the front door and says, "Johnny, dinner." And little Johnny just keeps playing, in the yard next door. She goes a second time, a third time, the fourth time she says, "Johnny, get home." And Johnny comes home. Why did he come home on number 4, but not on number 1, 2, 3? Because he's learned that if he doesn't come home when Mama says, "Get home," she will come down there and take him by the hand and walk him home. And he does not want Mother in the neighborhood. So he comes home. See, the action brought him home. So I say to mothers, if you want to call your children 4 times, that's fine with me. But if you'd rather they come home on the first call, put the action that you were putting with number 4 on number 1. And you won't walk them home but one time, and they'll come on the first call. So it's words and actions, whatever the topic.
It's good. Dr. Chapman, do we ever outgrow that when our kids are young adults, when they have their families of their own? Are there ways that healthy parents still guide their children?
I think as adults, we're asking them questions in terms of, is there anything I could do to help you? Or we may be putting books in their hands. That's something that, here's something that I heard about. I thought you guys might like to read it. So we can influence. We're not trying to control our adult children. We're just, if they like our advice on something, we certainly want to give it to them.
That's good. Okay, I love number 4. A healthy family shows honor. What is the importance of teaching honor and respect?
Well, the scriptures say clearly that children should obey and honor their parents. And I think if they don't learn to obey, they likely will not learn to honor. And so, and we recognize in our culture today, this is one of the major problems, is that parents have not established their authority in the home and taught children to obey the parents. And consequently, school teachers say to me, I have to spend half the day just trying to keep order in the classroom. And I can't even be teaching because they don't respect the teacher as the one in authority in the classroom. So I think as parents, again, the whole thing of having rules but also consequences. So if you have a rule, tell the child what the consequences will be if they break the rule. Let's say the rule is we don't throw the ball in the house. You throw it in the yard but not in the house. And if you do, here's what happens. You lose the ball for 2 days. We put it in the trunk of the car for 2 days. And if you broke something, we'll have to pay for it out of your allowance. So now you and the child knows, what's going to happen. So then you can say when they throw the ball in the house, "Oh, Johnny, I'm so proud of you. You usually keep the
Mm.
rules, but you broke this one." And now they've begun, tears are in their eyes, depending on their age, tears are in their eyes. But you know what has to happen, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go out and put it in the car. So you take them out, and now they suffer the consequence. And I don't know what that vase will cost, but we'll have to start taking it out of your allowance.
Mm.
And they feel that that's fair because they already knew what the consequences would be. So putting those
Yeah.
consequences there beforehand helps you not overreact. It's, I told you not to throw the ball in the house. You know better than that. I don't know.
Mm.
And then when you get through with that, you just say, "But Johnny, listen, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you
Mm.
because you seldom break the rules." So you kind of wrap it in love, and we're teaching the
Mm.
children to obey, and they will come to honor us when we do that.
It's so good, Dr. Chapman. As you were explaining that, I was thinking one of the things that is also eroding in our culture is honor. I mean, people talk about people don't respect teachers, as you mentioned, or law enforcement officers, or our leaders,
Yeah.
and to create cultures of honor in our home is really become a countercultural thing. Last one, last trait that you wrote about, and I am so glad you wrote about this, though I will acknowledge that it can be a bit of a lightning rod. You said a trait of healthy families is husbands who love and lead. Why do we need men who lead, Dr. Chapman?
Well, I think we should never separate those two words, love and lead, loving leader.
Mm.
In our culture, I think many times, even in the Christian circles, we've misinterpreted that, and we've used contemporary examples, and we say, well, when the husband's the leader, it means that he is the president of the company. She's a
Mm.
vice president, or he's a general. He tells her what to do. No, 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 no. Look at the verse that says he's the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. What did Christ, the head
Yeah.
of the church, do? He died for the church. He gave his life for the
Mm.
church. So the husband who's a loving leader has that attitude. Honey, I'm here to enrich your life. I'm here to help you in any way I can. But he takes the initiative in like speaking her love language and meeting her needs, and the initiative in trying to meet his children's needs and understand their needs. And he's the one who's reading a book and saying, honey, I read this. I think it's very helpful. Why don't we read this together? And let's read a chapter a week, and then let's say, what can we learn from that chapter? He's taken the initiative to introduce things that he thinks will enrich the family. And I tell you, I don't think many wives will walk away from a man like that. I think
Yeah.
she's going to be open to that kind of leadership.
Hmm. I have one of those leaders in my home, and I thank God for him every day. You said something in your book that I found really fascinating and frankly comforting. You said conflict can be loving. So, as we're thinking about healthy families, can healthy Christian families have conflict?
I think conflict is inevitable. A husband and
Mm.
wife will not always agree about everything for one simple reason: we're human, and humans have
Mm.
different ideas, different thoughts. And so we have to recognize that up front. And I did not do that in the early years of my marriage. I just argued with my wife. I was right.
Mm.
And she argued with me because she had the same idea. She was right. Listen,
Yeah.
we're going to have differences, but love respects the dignity and the humanity of the other person. And we have the attitude,
Mm.
I want to hear your perspective on this because you may be right, but I want to hear it.
Yeah.
And you listen to them and you ask questions about it. And then you can honestly say, okay, I can see how that makes sense. Now, let me share
Mm.
my perspective. And then they listen to you and say to you, okay, I can see how that makes sense. Now, obviously, we still disagree. So how can we solve the problem? And now you spend your energy looking for a solution rather than spending your energy trying to win an argument. If you win an
Yeah.
argument with your spouse and they just say, have it your way,
Mm.
you won the argument, they lost. It's no fun to live with a loser. So why would you
Mm.
create a loser? No, no, no. We're on
Mm.
the same team. And learning how to respect each other's ideas and process them together and then look for a solution, something we can agree on as a couple. That's the idea of solving conflicts. But conflicts are inevitable. We're never going to be to a stage where we agree on everything. We have to learn how to
Mm.
respect each other's ideas and work our way through them in a positive way.
Grounded sisters, I hope that was a fire hose of encouragement for you. Because if you had a rough Monday morning, or you and your husband spent the weekend fighting, or you're at odds with somebody else in your family, that doesn't automatically discount you from being a healthy family. One last question, Dr. Chapman, and this is really where I know I'm going to toss the ball to you, and I know you're going to hit a home run. There's more at stake here than just having happier families. Everybody wants happy families, Christians and non-Christians alike. So how do healthy Christian families impact the world?
I think there's nothing more fundamental in a culture than families.
Amen.
And if we have healthy families, we are impacting the culture because we're raising children who are going to be emotionally and spiritually healthy, and they're going to make an impact, and it expands beyond that. So I think there's few things that are more important in our culture than seeking to have healthy families. And if Christians can take the lead in that and demonstrate that and experience that, the non-Christian world will look upon that and really want to have it because, as you said, even non-Christians want to have good families. So no question about it, we desperately need healthy families in our culture today, and it will radically impact the culture.
Amen to that. Dr. Chapman, thank you for being on Grounded. What a rich conversation. I do want to point people to, I keep hitting my microphone when I hold it up, I do want to point people to your newest book, 5 Traits of a Healthy Family by Dr. Gary Chapman. We are going to drop the link because I know you're going to want to get your copy today. Dr. Chapman, thanks again for everything you are doing for so many years to encourage God's people to have healthy families.
Well, thank you, Erin. It was good to be with you all. I appreciate what you gals are doing, so keep up the good work.